Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on today's episode of Beyond Insights. Today I'm joined by Chay Stockdale from Iridium, and we're going to be talking about hospitality industry and key insights that you should be looking at, specifically if you run a restaurant. So thank you for joining us, Chay.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Thought maybe you could give everyone a bit of an introduction to who you are, what you do, and why we're talking on this topic today.
Perfect. So I'm the head of advisory for Iridium, and what we do in the Iridium Advisory is we work as a strategic partner with businesses. We help them set their long-term goals and vision. We break that down into milestones that can be achieved each year. We do a deep analysis of the business, find all of their pain points, help them overcome those pain points, and then put it into a structure that can be reported on and rebase each year to realign to their milestones. So we help businesses essentially achieve their long-term vision. In that is a lot of different elements that come to play, but that's at the core what we do. Why to talk around hospitality is because it's a nice industry which is familiar to everyone. Everyone understands the businesses in the hospitality industry space, so it's a great topic to talk around.
Awesome. And so you've worked with a lot of different hospitality businesses. I was wondering how you found those businesses.
Cool. Perfect. So we built out a vertical in the hospitality space through doing system implementations. So we focused on doing inventory setups using MarketMan and Counter back in the day, which was lucky. Well, we had a we looked at the businesses and tried to implement systems holistically to solve their challenges. And from that, we built up a restaurant vertical, essentially, because those were the systems that were catered to. And then we overlaid kind of financial management solutions on top of that. And that's how we found ourselves in that space through setting up systems. And then we got a lot of learnings and insights into the industry just from that.
Awesome. So in your experience, what kind of models do you think work successfully for restaurants?
So there's kind of two approaches from a restaurant standpoint. There's the approach of being kind of owner-managed business, and that's usually built around the lifestyle of the owner. Usually the owner plays a key function within the business. So they're usually either general manager or they're the chef, or it's for instance, a chef trying to earn more than the market-related salary. Or there's the model of trying to deploy as many locations as possible and build a chain model, essentially. Both, I suppose, are tailored to the investments that you put into, or the investment you have available to build the business. And both have different kind of pain points. So I suppose looking at owner-managed restaurants or an owner-managed business, restaurants are quite tight on margins, and having a single location, it's quite hard to drive the volumes to generate enough profit to support business functions or supporting business functions such as HR, finance, marketing.
Right.
It's quite difficult to have a single location and support those costs, which is a challenge. With the chain model, the idea is that each location kind of feeds into an overall head office cost, where their support functions kind of sit, and they can be afforded. But the challenge is you need considerable investment to roll out multiple locations,
Yes,
and
sure.
roll out that business plan. I think one thing that I picked up working in this space is that if you're going to kind of deploy multiple locations, do so quickly. Don't focus on really refining the structure, because each time you hold back on deploying locations, you're carrying those fixed overheads, and that's eating away at investors' money. So rather have a fast deployment, getting the right locations, and then look at refinement.
So you can't be too much of a perfectionist, like trying to make your head, I was going to say head office, your main restaurant or your first branch, like absolutely perfect before opening up other branches.
Exactly. And I think, this is speaking from experience, but I've seen a business that did that. spent 10 million trying to get the right structure to roll out, and just blew through a lot of investment. So rather get the deployment, have a fast deployment, do your due diligence on the location, because that can be a really make or break for a restaurant. And yeah.
Awesome. And in terms of the kind of key KPIs that restaurant owners should be looking at?
Yeah, there's loads. So what's interesting about the hospitality space in general, and particularly with restaurants, is actually it's a very technical space. If you think about like a restaurant, they're taking ingredients, they're building a product, and they're then so there's a manufacturing element, and then there's the sale, and the sale is through it's through a channel where you're kind of already committed to all of your costs and your working capital up front. You're hoping that customers come through. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of moving parts to just a simple restaurant business. So with that, there's like a plethora of KPIs that can be used. Say from a sales standpoint, useful ones are looking at your kind of repeat customers, your customer acquisition costs, total orders, order size, to see if your value of a table, for instance, value is going up. Table kind of turnover. So how long guys are actually at a table for. From a operation standpoint, there's a lot of different points, and a lot of them are driven at kind of the chef level. Like just from a prep time. So in the kitchen, how quickly can you prepare for sitting, or what is your staff turnover? Are you having a lot of waiters exit, and why? There's health and safety metrics. So there's like a plethora of metrics to review. But what I think is quite important is that although these are entry point businesses for a lot of first-time business owners, they can be quite highly data-driven. So it's important to have the systems and processes in place that you can leverage the data to refine your area, well, refine operations essentially.
Awesome. And in terms of what would you say is the most important thing that you need to have in your restaurant? Would it be like the chef or the location?
So there's a few key considerations. Location is quite key. So finding the right spot before investment, because if you've got if you invest into a bad location, you're on the back foot already.
Yeah.
So do your due diligence beforehand. Look at metrics like foot traffic, look at the customer base, look at other restaurants in the area, see what businesses are out there. That's quite key. Then also having a very skilled chef can help you optimize a lot of your operational processes. So from just simple things like staff training for your kitchen to optimizing how your menu's built. So all of the components, all the ingredients that go into a meal, making sure they're cost efficient, and also they have common base ingredients, from reducing prep time to managing the shrinkage rate, which is trying to reduce wastage over time. Having a very skilled chef can help across all of those areas. They can really drive the implementation of fixing areas. But if you have the data, which you can provide them to show where areas of focus should be, that really helps. So the third point is being quite system focused, I suppose, to be able to gather all of that data is quite a key. So say accountants can find themselves in a fortunate spot, being able to drive or implement these systems to be able to drive that data, which then a really skilled chef can use to drive around change in your business.
It's really about being able to manage your inventory, to make sure that you're, as you say, not wasting food. It just makes me think there's some restaurants, where the menu is like pages and pages long, and they're completely different dishes. And I often wonder, well, one, can you make all of these dishes as well as each other? And then two, if they don't have those ingredients in common, are you not going to get a lot of wastage? Especially if maybe there's certain dishes you thought that lots of people would want and now no one's ordering them.
Yeah, that's spot on. I think having a large variety of dishes can be a pain point for restaurants. Having a more focused menu that plays to faster prep time and price relative to restaurants in the area. That's kind of should be, I suppose, a focus. I think a lot of restaurant owners go in there and want to be able to cater to any of the needs of any potential customer coming in. Challenges is that affects all your shelf life, your order, how you order with suppliers. It has costs all across your supply chain.
So it actually probably is helpful then to have a specific sort of theme, or like you do Italian food, you stick to one kind of food.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that having a focus is key.
And what are some of the other challenges that you've seen with clients in this space?
So one of the biggest challenges is working capital management. Like a lot of businesses, there's an upfront commitment to costs, such as, say, paying your staff on the day before you've actually sold anything, or buying your ingredients and making the food before you've sold anything. So working capital can be a challenge in this space. So again, having a data-driven approach to managing working capital, to see, for instance, looking at your order levels over the last couple of months, being able to match order levels with prep in the kitchen to match those will reduce kind of order levels you need from suppliers. So there's a lot of optimization you can do to manage your working capital if you take a kind of a bit of a data approach to it. Some things like just extending payment terms with suppliers, all those pieces can filter in to help that. But definitely it's the cash outflow before the cash inflow. Like most businesses, it is definitely a pain point for restaurants. I think the other piece that we've alluded to already is the location. Getting the right location before, doing your due diligence beforehand and getting the right location can be a make or break for any restaurant business. So just do your homework. Do your homework before before investing in this
Don't
space.
just launch into it and
Yeah.
expect people to come to you.
Exactly. Yeah, I think those two are the primary pain points. There's definitely a lot more, but those two are quite key.
And in terms of you obviously work with a lot of different clients now, and not only hospitality. How does working across these different industries, what's the difference? What are your biggest differences that you found?
So I suppose the challenge with the hospitality space is that it's just from an accounting standpoint, or from a consulting standpoint, trying to assist a restaurant or hospitality business, is that it's high volumes. So there's a lot of data already. Typically in this space, it's generally low skilled. It's low skilled kind of staff or employees who are executing. That's kind of general for the industry. And then there's also the owner or business owner is typically fulfilling a primary function within the business. So they're generally time strapped. So all those pieces kind of work against you if you're trying to provide, say, accounting services to this industry, which makes it a challenging industry to work in compared to other businesses which are more low volume. Business owner can step away from the operations. They can have more time to kind of coordinate with you. But what is nice about this space is that there's a lot of technicalities and complexity where accountants can leverage their knowledge to provide meaningful insights to actually drive change in the business. So often in other businesses space, the insights you're giving to the business owner, they already know, but not necessarily in the, working with a restaurant or business owner who owns a restaurant. So I think that's the nice thing about doing this, working in this space, is that you can provide meaningful impact.
And what would you say is one of your most memorable experiences that you've had working in this space?
Yeah, so I've done quite a few things in the hospitality space. I've worked on quite a few buyouts, which are quite interesting because you learn around that restaurants always seem to be inflated for their what they sell for. So I think it's primarily driven for the fact that it's an entry business, that anyone who's looking to try and like find, finish their career or get at, try and get out of work and looking to try and become an entrepreneur or business owner, a restaurant's like a nice entry point for them. So it seems that prices are always kind of inflated versus the kind of, the book value or the business value when you crunch the numbers. So working on a few buyouts, which has been quite interesting. I've modeled quite a few deployments for kind of multiple locations nationally, or working on their working capital side to manage their cash flow for the business. But I think a meaningful side from my side is, and I still do it in my personal time, I assist a family friend with their cafe, and it's nice to be able to overlay some experience and insights there, which, yeah, it's just meaningful work.
Well, that's awesome. So I guess I was thinking, if someone is starting out a new restaurant or cafe or some other business in this space, would you recommend that they start with an accountant? Is this something they're going to need from the beginning? Because they might be reluctant, maybe, oh, we already have all these other expenses. Would they need an accountant when they're starting out?
I think, it really depends on your approach to how you get into the space. So I think before you get into the space, you need to really do your due diligence. And by doing your due diligence, you maybe bring in your accountant for the due diligence on helping you build out the business model before you even start the business. Because then you can you can bounce off ideas around location, around the foot traffic in that area, around pricing, around competitors in the space, all of those areas. Now, I think often, business owners could really get a lot of value from their accountant. The challenge is that if the accountant is providing like compliance function or bookkeeping function, their time is going to be so swamped with doing that they're going to find it very difficult to leverage what they're doing to provide the insights above that. So I think it's kind of a bit of a juggling act. I would say getting assistance before doing investments would be a good key, and then at a certain point, definitely bringing in expertise if you're wanting to scale your business model. If you're running a cafe by yourself, it might be difficult to justify the cost of an advisor to come in and assist you. But try and maybe see if you can find a consultant which you can bounce off ideas on a very ad hoc kind of basis, and see if that kind of works.
So it makes sense about being kind of proactive, thinking or planning ahead before you launch into what, as you've said, is quite a challenging industry to actually succeed in.
Agreed. I think, yeah, if there's one kind of key takeaway, is that before you get into this space, do you map out what it kind of looks like and how you're going to tackle it from a business model standpoint, and don't be gun-ho and jump in and then try and make it work. But if you've got backers and you've got the plan, you've got the investment, and you're looking to deploy multiple locations, don't spend forever trying to refine the perfect location. Do it fast, get that market penetration, and get each location contributing to your overall fixed overheads.
It's quite a fine balance there. You want to plan it enough that you're not just launching straight in without knowing what to expect, but then you also don't want to spend forever trying to perfect everything.
Exactly. And that's the thing, it's like the spectrum, and somewhere in the middle is kind of, the right point. But it's not a fast and hard rule across the board, but that's from my experience anyway, what I've seen.
And is there anything you've seen that's really surprised you in the industry?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest surprise for myself is because I work in numerous industries now, is the valuations and the complexity in hospitality, and to really kind of you have to be quite analytical, I think, to get a good working model together to kind of scale to make money in this space. But then at the same time, the overinflated prices on kind of a sellout. So there's definitely a passion element that drives drives the price point in
Yes.
this space, which is it's just kind of interesting. But yeah, it's and of course comparing that to other businesses, different business models, which are very more their value is very more analytically based. But yeah.
And if there are any accountants who are listening who are thinking of maybe going into the hospitality space, what would your advice to them be?
So I think if you're looking to get into the space, have a very good system or tech stack that you can implement to reduce or automate the volumes. And then you want to be able to leverage that to be able to add meaningful insights. I think the nice thing about this space is that there's a big market, and that you can really drive a lot of impact through the insights that you can provide. And being able to give that kind of outside view or perspective really adds a lot of value to business owners in this space. So if you're looking to get into the space, have a very good tech stack that can kind of automate a lot of the grunt work or the volumes work, and then really leverage on the insights piece to add that extra bit of value.
Yeah, I think especially because you're trying to save the time of the restaurant owner who's probably very busy, as you were saying, you don't want to be stuck doing all the kind of tedious, a lot of the compliance work when you could be adding real value through insights.
Exactly. So you got to have the fit of the system fit to make it work, and you don't want to be drowning in the volumes. You don't want to take that time away from the business owner and then just drown yourself. So you got to find the balance again.
And is there anything else you think that we haven't really touched on that would be worth sharing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting space. I think overall, you know, it's a very much a margins game, especially the restaurant space. So there's a lot of exposures to hospitality in general. So if you look at seasonality, you look at skill level, you look at there's a plethora of exposures that need kind of risk mitigation in place to trying to like to manage those kind of exposures. Um, so there's a lot of pieces to actually kind of have oversight over, which
I
makes
suppose, sorry, seasonality is quite a big one
yeah.
For the hospitality industry. If you think of certain holidays and times of year, how do you kind of account for if most of your money is coming in over the Christmas period or something like that?
Yep. It comes to planning ahead. So if you know, when you have your bumper season, usually being summer, you've got to put aside funds for your winter season. Again, being data driven, you want to kind of optimize your costs against your revenue, looking at kind of your orders and matching your supplier orders. But it really is coming around putting pieces in place so that come out of season, you're okay. But the challenge is there's only so much you can do if you don't have the bumper season, and that's the exposure piece. So it is a space where there's a number of risks, but mapping those out and understanding the risks relative to your business in particular is a good kind of starting point.
I suppose finding every way you can to sort of maximize that bumper season.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're out of season, putting things in place. So there's a piece called dynamic pricing where you change your pricing out of season. So your prices drop down, you become more friendlier for locals. You can do special. There's a lot of different kind of initiatives that you can do to try and keep volumes and revenue up during out of season. But I think there's some hard calls which you potentially need to make as well with matching your cost base to your season as well. So don't necessarily like if you're working on a in season have part-time coverage for staff, out of season don't have those part-time. So try and flex your cost base as well to the seasons as well. It's a little bit harder, but you want to play on both fronts.
Oh, makes sense. I know there are also some restaurants and also think more broadly in the hospitality industry, like If you go to the Kruger Park, you go somewhere on safari, they'll have different prices for locals and international people, which I think is also a really good way to help you out there.
Definitely. And that's part of that dynamic pricing. Show your ID book and you get a 50 or 15% discount.
And also a way to draw more local people in if you know that you're going to get a discount. Or I know when I was a student, I was always excited to go somewhere if there was a student discount or there's a pensioners discount. You've got to find ways to keep people coming even on the off season.
Exactly. And this is where it comes back down to being data driven as well. If you know your customer base and you know who your repeat customers are, target them in particular. So build out initiatives around your customer segments. And that way you keep them sticky out of season.
Oh, makes sense. Anything else that you think we've missed?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's like I said, it's an interesting space. So there's a lot we can talk around. I don't know how we're doing for times.
Big check. We got like 3 minutes left.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so I suppose for a kind of a wrap is the hospitality space, as a business owner, there's a lot of complexities. It's a great avenue to start at, but likewise from providing advisory or consulting services, it's a great learning industry.
Yes.
So you will learn about inventory, you will learn around manufacturing, you will learn around working capital management. So it's a great space to learn a lot of technical areas, which you then can apply to different industries later as well. And it's also a fairly, I suppose, low risk. You're not dealing with $100 million financial services provider. You're dealing with a restaurant. It's lower risk, but there's great learning curve. So I think there's benefits across, from both sides. And it would be great to see, I suppose, great to see more accountants kind of leveraging the value that they can add as a value add to assist business owners in the space, especially if you can automate the kind of the volume work better.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the main takeaway for me has been just how important it is to actually look at the data and to make your decisions based off that.
Exactly. And then empower your general manager in your business, your chef, empower them with data so they can know the areas they need to focus on to refine to make the overall restaurant or business more efficient.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a wrap for us for today.
Cool.
Thanks very much, Chay.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We appreciate you taking the time.
It was awesome being on here.
And thank you, everyone who's joined us. We will see you next week.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast.
Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now.
And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast.
That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.